Hi, guys. It's Kathy. I hope you're doing well. All right. Now to OJ. We are in part 3 of March 8th. There are 4 parts to March 8th. Here, let me show you what I'm looking at. So we might get through both of these today. Probably not. Maybe. There's a good chance. This one is a full day. That's almost 2 hours long. This one is almost 2 hours long. But that right there makes me believe it's Furman. So I think this is today. At any moment, Furman could get on from here on out because I don't see Lang anywhere. At any moment, it's time. So, except for right now, it can't happen right now because look, he's still on the stand. He's still sitting on the stand. And, if I would say he's a gamer if this was not in the 90s. Anyway.
Go. All right. And if you found out that as she used this cocaine and was freebasing on a daily basis, she had no job by which to pay for these drugs, would that be a factor that might bear upon the opinion you gave us yesterday? That's going to relate to his opinion.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what counsel is posing to the detective, or what are known as hypothetical questions. The witness is asked to assume to be true certain facts and then asked to give an opinion based upon those assumed facts. If those assumed facts turn out not to be true, then you can take that into consideration in evaluating the opinion that is given. Mr. Cochran.
Thank you. I don't think we had an answer to the last question. Do you want the question read back for you?
I think I understand it. If I had been pursuing that line, that certainly would be a factor I would look at, yes.
And you understand that when individuals get drugs, they sometimes will pay for them in cash. Sometimes they get them on consignment. Isn't that correct?
I've heard of that.
And in your experience as an experienced police officer, when people are given drugs, the drug dealers or the people who give those drugs want to be paid. Isn't that correct?
I would assume that.
And sometimes in your experience, you know that when drugs are not paid for that have been gotten and used, there are repercussions. Isn't that correct?
Certainly.
And hence, sometimes, and that's why you've heard this term, Colombian necklace. Isn't that correct?
I've heard that term, not necessarily in connection with every murder I've ever handled.
Well, it can also be for payback for not having paid for drugs. Isn't that correct, though, sir?
I suppose it could be.
And in the course of your investigation, if you were to learn that Faye Resnick was in this drug treatment facility on June 12th, 1994, and that she, in fact, called Ms. Nicole Brown Simpson that evening from the drug treatment facility, would that be a fact that you might find relevant in the course of your investigation and your opinion regarding whether drugs were related in this manner?
Again, if I were pursuing a drug-related homicide, that would probably come into play, yes.
And would it be relevant to you if you're pursuing a drug-related homicide that Ms. Nicole Brown Simpson was present at the intervention in which family and friends of Faye Resnick, including Nicole Brown Simpson and her former boyfriend, Christian Reichard, insisted, because of the state of her freebasing cocaine, that she go and get some help that same night and leave Nicole Brown Simpson's residence? Would you consider that as one of the factors if you were pursuing this as a drug-related homicide?
If I were pursuing it as a drug-related homicide, I would probably want all of those factors, yes.
In other words, as an experienced investigator, you'd want to know all of those things, and you'd want to determine what bearing, if any, they had. And that would be more than a superficial investigation. Isn't that correct?
If it led in that direction, certainly.
Very well, Your Honor. Maybe we stop this one.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have a couple of matters I need to take care of out of your presence. I'm going to excuse you for lunch now. Please remember my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions about the case. Don't conduct any deliberations until the matter has been submitted to you. Do not allow anybody to communicate with you with regard to the case. All right, let's excuse the jury and let me see Mr. Walsh and one counsel from each side at the sidebar, please. Not present. Mr. Cochran, anything you want to address or bring up before we invite the jurors to rejoin us? And Mr. Robertson, would you ask if Mr. Hodgman will be down here at 3:15 so we can clear up some of those things? Mr. Scheck, any items we can clear up so we can turn you loose for the afternoon? Any items we can take up with you so we can turn you loose for the afternoon? He mentioned he wanted to,
Yes, we submitted a letter to the court with the transcript of yesterday's testimony with the witness and some of the colloquy, and made a proposed curative instruction. And I think our letter speaks for itself, and I would urge the court to give the instruction as written.
okay. Ms. Clark?
Yes, Your Honor, the people have also submitted the proposed admonition. I think that counsel's letter is an extreme exaggeration of both the importance and the impact of the question and answer that are an issue. And the requested admonition goes far beyond the pale of anything necessary. We all know this testimony is going to occur. This evidence is going to be presented. Counsel's proposed admonition makes it sound like there was a devastating thing that occurred in court yesterday, and that's not the case. That's simply not the case. I think that if anything is at all required here, it's that the answer and the question be stricken, period.
All right. Thank you, counsel.
In reaction to that, I think it's clear from the letter, the difference between the curative instruction that we offered and the one the prosecution offered is that we are essentially saying that the questions were improper, but that Detective Lang does not have the scientific training or qualifications to state an opinion about these test results, and you're instructed to disregard his answers. I think that is reasonable and plain. And I think, as I lay out in this memo, the prosecution is well aware of the scientific issues with respect to the blood scrapings and the test. They're subtle, they're complicated, and I think that they plainly gained a tactical advantage here. And in looking back at the record, I think it was much more egregious than any of us thought. First of all, the question, are you aware of the results of those scrapings, the DNA tests, that the DNA tests on the nail scrapings? Yes, I am. And did that testing reveal the blood to be hers? Yes. Now, that question, everybody knows is improper because no DNA test can do that definitively. But more importantly, the prosecutor yesterday indicated that she was trying to raise this in the first place just to show how, as obliquely, just to show how this detective's investigation, or the focus of his investigation, changed. And that really can't be the case, because these tests were performed after the trial started. So to be claiming that she was asking these questions to focus, to explain how the detective's investigation went before the trial started, is illogical and without any factual basis. I think what was clearly going on is Ms. Clark was trying to elicit DNA test results from a witness who was not qualified to do so in order to gain a tactical advantage in terms of when the testimony would come out from the scientific witnesses, where it will come out quite differently in terms of direct and cross of the proper witnesses. So
I got my daughter's boyfriend a drone for his birthday in September because of you two. I thought he would love it. I thought he would be great at it. I don't think he's used it even once.
I tried to craft an instruction that was limited, particularly in light of the discovery violation, and it seems to me perfectly plain that Detective Lang, who seems to have far-ranging expertise in lots of areas, but I'm sure one of them is not, that he is qualified to state an opinion about these DNA test results. And it seems fair to tell the jury to disregard it, because I think that's the way we were prejudiced.
All right. Thank you, counsel. If you feel compelled.
Only that the curative instruction requested is inappropriate. The question was neither inappropriate nor improper. The only issue was discovery. I, in good faith, believe that they knew of these results, and that's really the issue I thought the court was addressing. And Mr. Detective Lang did not offer a scientific opinion of any kind. He simply indicated it did not change the focus of his investigation. And that had to do with the impact on his state of mind, the issue as to rush to judgment, the issue as to his theory of the case, which is continuing to be a line of cross-examination that is being engaged in by counsel. Obviously, the response to that line of questioning is there's a wealth of physical evidence that indicates that these are not drug-related killings, that this is not the result of some Colombian cartel or some mafia killing. And that's what this line of questioning goes to. It was opened up on cross-examination when counsel began to ask about drug-related killings and other motives. And in response to that, the people were appropriately entitled to say, what led you to file and what leads you to conclude to this day that you have made no mistake in requesting the filing in that manner. And I mean, that's the big picture. That's where this all fits in. And there's no effort to mislead or confuse a jury, quite the contrary. The court knows that the people will present witnesses, experts, to testify in much more detail as to the nature of the testing and those results. But at this moment, all we were asking to do was ask Detective Lang to testify to his state of mind and why he bases his opinion, what he bases his opinion on, and why he does not believe it to be drug-related killings. So I mean, it's a totally separate line of inquiry. Mr. Scheck is missing the point. What the court, I thought, wanted to address was what turned out to be a discovery issue, which the people were, I was not aware it was a discovery issue, knowing that the defense expert was standing over their shoulder literally when the testing was done. I think I'm entitled to believe that they would know what those results were, and I'm not so sure that they didn't. Nevertheless, I understand the court's concern. That's why, at best, the court should instruct the jury to disregard the question and answer and advise them that that subject matter will be taken up by the expert witnesses at the appropriate time.
Right.
And I think
Thank
that more than adequately covers the situation.
All right, thank you, counsel. I think we've exhausted our discussion on this. All right, Mr. Cochran, you had one other matter that you broached before we broke.
Yes, just an area of inquiry, briefly, Your Honor, with regard to the prosecutor elicited some testimony that this detective followed up all of these leads and clues and everything. And I think the question I pondered or proffered was whether or not he'd followed up any clues or leads that had pointed toward Mr. Simpson's innocence. And I wanted some documentation of that. That was the area we were looking at just briefly.
All right, I had sort of anticipated you were going to launch into a litany of 450 leads that were otherwise.
No, Your Honor, I mentioned to the court yesterday, you should never presuppose anything with regard to me. I think that I'm perfectly capable of telling the court that's all I'm planning to do. And that's what I wanted to ask. I wanted to ask him about it. In fact,
I presuppose you're an ass.
we can ask him now.
All right, then I misunderstood
Yeah, that's how.
the
That's how.
import of your comment.
Sure.
All right,
Right.
then let's proceed.
May I approach you, Your Honor, with the witness
Sure.
with regard to that? Thanks.
Ms. Clark? Detective Tom Lang is still on the witness stand on recross examination by Mr. Cochran. Good afternoon again, Detective Lang.
Afternoon, yeah.
Be reminded you're still under oath. Mr.
Yes.
Cochran, you may
Continue.
continue with
Thank
your
you, Your Honor. Thank you.
cross-examination.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Detective Lang.
Afternoon.
With regard to the clues that you spoke about, I guess, yesterday and this morning that you've investigated, are there some clues that other members of your team have pursued that would be of an exculpatory nature as they relate to Mr. Simpson that would point toward his innocence?
Possibly of an exculpatory nature, yes.
And there are some clues like that you have not personally investigated. Is that correct?
I believe so.
And would Detective Payne be one of those who've looked at those clues?
Detective Payne supervises the assignment of those clues to a great extent and has those clues in his computer.
And if I would ask you to search through your computer to give us a computer run of the number of those clues and what the status of those clues are, could you do that over a period of time?
Yes,
And are you willing to do that?
certainly.
And do you have a ballpark estimate of how many such clues there are now pending?
I would have no idea except to state that they've all been turned over to you. I haven't reviewed personally each and every one, so I don't have any idea.
And in that connection, as I understand your testimony, those clues regarding innocence or whatever come in pretty much on a daily basis. Is that correct? Clues in this case?
No, not necessarily.
All right, but let me rephrase it. You still get clues in this case on a daily basis, isn't that correct?
Practically.
And so the investigation in this case will and must continue because of that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And so you'll try to get that for us. And if we can finish you today, you can perhaps bring that back at some later time. Is that correct?
Well, again, I've turned over all clues. It might be very subjective as to what is exculpatory and what is not.
Don't say yes. It's a trap. They're going to get you back on the stand for another 4 weeks. Say no.
I might suggest that you have your people look at those also,
We will do that.
because you may interpret something as exculpatory and I may not.
Okay.
So I really don't know.
One person's exculpatory may be another person's inculpatory. Is that what you're saying?
Certainly.
All right. We'll make that judgment, but you'll give us what you have. Is that correct?
We'll make that attempt, but again, I don't know exactly what you're asking for.
All right. Well, I appreciate you doing that. Now, with regard to the subject of ice cream, you said yesterday that photographs tend to memorialize what's at the scene, and that seemed to be a fair statement. And in this instance, you did not take any photographs of many of the things that were in the interior of that residence. Isn't that correct?
That's
have them
correct.
taken. And we've established previously that you didn't take any photograph of the ice cream, right?
That's correct.
Now, with regard to that, have you personally or anyone in your direction talked to a young lady, I believe is 8 years old, thereabouts, whose name is Rachel Berman?
I don't know if Rachel was spoken to or her mother. I believe her mother was.
All right. And with regard to the kind of ice cream that you had the detective do a test on, I think you told us that was some kind of what ice cream was that?
Chocolate chip cookie dough.
All right. And were you also did you run any test on an ice cream flavor named Rainforest Crunch?
No.
Did you have information that Miss Nicole Brown Simpson that night did you have information that night? May I finish the question, Your Honor?
Yes.
In the course of your investigation, did you have information that on the night of June 12th, 1994, Mr. Cole Brown Simpson purchased an ice cream?
I wonder, in this big book on the judge's desk, marked, I think it says California evidence. I wonder how many chapters in there are devoted to ice cream. Has anybody read that book by any chance?
Called Rainforest Crunch.
No, my information was the chocolate chip cookie dough, and I believe there was a chocolate chip.
And so your answer is no, you didn't have it. It was Rainforest Crunch.
That's correct.
So have you, in your voluminous materials, do you have any statement or have you read a statement from Rachel Berman, who apparently was with them that evening? Have you read that statement?
Oh, read a statement from Rachel Berman?
As to what kind of ice cream they purchased when they went to Ben and Jerry's?
No, I received that information through the Brown family as to what
Right.
each one of the three children purchased.
All right. Would you think it would be helpful from the course of you strike that? In your investigation, you learned, did you not, that the Brown family themselves were not with Ms. Nicole Brown Simpson and the children and Rachel Berman when the ice cream was purchased. Did you not find that out?
They just left them when they walked across the street. That's
So
correct.
they weren't with them. Now, would it be helpful to you to talk to a child not involved in this case, who was present when the ice cream was purchased. Would that
That
be helpful?
that was done through the Brown family.
I'm asking you, would that be helpful for you to do that?
Yes,
Now, the Brown families, they aren't members of the Los Angeles Police Department, are they?
I was advised by the Brown family that I could not talk to the children, that they were under the care of a child psychologist, and so I respected that.
I understand that. You told us that yesterday. I'm asking you now about Rachel Berman, not the Simpson children. I'm asking you, have you or anyone in your direction talked to that child individually?
As to the ice cream, no, again, that was done through the Brown family.
Well, as the investigator, would it be helpful to you to talk to a child who was present, sir, and find out about the ice cream?
Yes,
Did you find out at any point that, let me ask you this, did you find out at any point in the course of your investigation that the flavors purchased were Rainforest Crunch? Did you ever find that out?
I don't recall Rainforest Crunch.
All right. Did you find out that one of the flavors purchased was chocolate fudge?
Yes,
Did you find out one of the flavors purchased was cookie donut?
I believe it was cookie dough. My information was 1 chocolate fudge and 2 cookie doughs.
All right, but you've not talked to Rachel Berman yet, right?
I have not talked to Rachel Berman.
Now, in this, bless you, you described for us that before lunch about these drug killings, and I asked you some questions about this Colombian necklace, and remember we talked about that?
Yes,
Do you know what a Colombian necktie is?
I've heard stories of Colombian neckties.
And what is a Colombian necktie?
My information is that it's a tire that would be put over someone's neck and set afire.
That's a Colombian necktie?
That's what I've heard. I've never experienced them.
Have you ever heard of a Colombian necktie being a situation where in a drug, I can ask this question, you're an expert. Thank you. Have you ever heard of a Colombian necktie being a situation where in a drug killing, a person's throat is slashed and their tongue is pulled down through their neck area? You ever heard of that?
That's not a Colombian necktie. What is that? That is something else. It is oh my gosh, I can't remember. I know it's not a Colombian necktie, but it is oh, it's never going to come to me now. It's not even close. I can't remember what it's called. Not Columbia.
What you talked about was a necktie that used in South Africa, isn't it, where tires are put over
I
someone?
thought that's what you were referring to.
No, we're talking about Colombia, not South Africa.
Well, I don't know where these things occur. The
All right.
only necktie reference I've heard is with the tire.
All right, sir. Now, you were the detective on the Wonderland case, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And was that a drug case? Involving
Yes.
drugs? Was that a drug case that involved knives?
No,
Was it a drug case involving killings?
it involved killing, yes.
Was there a knife involved in that case at all?
There were no knives involved in Laurel Canyon, no.
But in that case, there was a drug killing that resulted, in which you investigated, is that correct?
There were several, there were 4 of them, yes.
And how long ago was that?
That was in July 1st, 1981.
1981.
Well,
Now, this morning I asked you some questions about Faye Resnick, and you are aware, because you have seen records subpoenaed from a drug treatment facility called Exodus, isn't that right, regarding Faye Resnick? You've seen those records, haven't you?
I don't recall seeing any records like that.
You're the lead investigator in this case, and you've never seen any records from a drug treatment facility called Exodus?
Faye Resnick became a witness after this case was filed and dealt with the district attorney's office, and I wasn't present for those interviews.
I understand all that, but have you ever seen those records from Exodus?
Again, I don't recall ever seeing those records.
Have you had occasion in the course of your investigation to have a review of this book allegedly written by Faye Resnick?
I have read the book,
You have read the book?
yes,
And when did you read the book?
shortly after it came out.
And in that book, after reading the book, if it's to be believed, you became aware, did you not, that Faye Resnick had had a history? Can I finish the question?
Finish the question.
Became aware. I finished the question.
All right, why don't you push the clicker, please?
That woman literally cannot finish one question when she tries to speak. And he's up there, oh, can I finish my question? Those are beautiful flowers, though. Gosh, look at them. I mean, I noticed them before, but I didn't really look at them. And they're gorgeous. Who sends white roses to a courtroom, though? I get the other ones, but white roses?
Thank you, counsel. Proceed.
Detective Lang, in the course of forming your opinion, this was not a drug-related, these were not drug-related killings. Did you take into account in forming that opinion whether or not Faye Resnick had moved in with Ms. Nicole Brown Simpson on June 3rd, resided there until June 8th, at which time she went through an intervention with friends and family into a drug treatment facility called Exodus, where she was still in on June 12th, 1994.
Initially, I didn't have that information. Subsequently, I received information she did not, in fact, move in with her permanently.
I didn't ask if she moved in permanently, sir. Can you get back to my question, if I can? Let me see if I can get it back to you so you're clear. The question was, if she lived there from June 3rd through June 8th, whether permanently or not, during that time frame. And on June 8th, she went into Exodus, the drug treatment facility. And on June 12th, she was still in that drug treatment facility. Would that have affected your opinion regarding whether or not this was possibly a drug-related killing?
Did not have that information.
All right. You didn't have the information. We understand that. Now, if you had that information, would that be something that you would want to check out?
If I felt that there were drugs and this was a drug-related murder, certainly. But
All right.
that wasn't the evidence that I had, and that wasn't the path that I pursued. I had nothing to lead me in that direction.
I understand. You've since said you found out information since this happens, and you've told Ms. Clark, did you not, that investigations continue, sometimes even when the case is going on. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Up to the minute this jury gets this case, the investigation may very well continue. Isn't that correct?
May well be on that.
All right. And as a good investigator, don't you continue, and don't you, as an investigator, try to develop evidence as it comes forward? Isn't that correct?
If it comes forward, I certainly do.
Right. You don't turn a blind eye on evidence just because it might point toward Mr. Simpson's innocence, do you?
Just the contrary.
All right. So you would follow any particular lead, and any such lead regarding possible drug involvement would be important to you as an investigator. Isn't that correct?
If I felt that this case involved drugs or drug dealers, it would. The fact is, it doesn't.
All right. Well, I'm asking you, you said there's new information that you have afterwards, so that you've already made a conclusion in this case that no matter what you heard about drug involvement or Faye Resnick, you don't plan to look into that. Is that what you're saying to us?
No, the fact that the victim may have a friend who uses drugs, and in light of no other evidence in that regard, has very little consequence to me. The fact that every bit of evidence that I have in this case points towards the defendant has a lot more to do with this.
Every bit of evidence you have, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Well, so that you have made your own judgment. In fact, in this case, you submitted this case to Ms. Clark for filing, did you?
Yes, I did.
So you submitted for a filing on June 17th to Ms. Clark, right?
That's correct.
And then she then filed this case, right?
That's correct.
And before you submitted this case, you had heard or seen Ms. Clark on television saying this was a sole murderer case. Isn't that correct? You'd heard that, hadn't you?
Yes, Your Honor.
It's hearsay. Just
Well, did you ever hear Ms. Clark say?
though it's a question. There's no answer.
Did you ever hear Ms. Clark say, when you were present, this was a sole murderer case?
That's so. I'm going to sustain the court's own objection. That's irrelevant. What you heard Ms. Clark say.
Well, when he gives this theory, I have a follow-up question. All right. At any rate, when you filed this particular case and you told us this theory was a sole murderer, was that your theory or Ms. Marsha Clark's theory?
My theory has always been there is one murderer.
Was that your theory or Ms. Marsha Clark's theory?
I don't know what her theory is. I believe her theory is the same as mine.
And you've discussed that with her, have you not, during your many conversations?
As to the one-person theory?
Yes.
It's been brought up.
All right, and when you discussed it and you went over your testimony last week before you testified yesterday, you talked about that, didn't you?
The fact that we believe there's one murderer?
Now, talked about the one murder theory. Yes.
Yes.
All right. And you were prepared when she asked you those questions yesterday. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Now, in that connection, you told us that you read Faye Resnick's book, right?
That's correct.
And so that we're clear, you're saying to us that even if you knew that Faye Resnick had lived at the residence of 875 South Bundy and had used drugs at that residence between the period of June 3rd to June 8th to such an extent that she had to go into a drug rehabilitation facility and that she had no job by which to pay for these drugs.
Objection, Your Honor.
And that,
Objection.
I can continue, Your Honor?
Passing on the evidence.
Overruled.
And that as of,
Hypothetical question.
thank you. And as of June 12th, she's still in that facility. You're telling us as an experienced investigator, that wouldn't cause you to even to consider that this might be a drug killing. Is that right?
I didn't base my investigation on what I read in the book. I based it on the facts and the evidence that I had.
That's what I'm asking you about, based upon the facts and the evidence. Is there any doubt in your mind as you sit there now that Faye Resnick was in Exodus, a drug treatment facility, on June 12th?
Objection, relevant hearsay.
Overruled.
I don't know if she was or not.
As an investigator, have you checked that out?
Personally, no.
All right, so you haven't. So would that be something that as an experienced investigator who wanted to get at all the facts, wouldn't you want to check that out?
Not when that was being handled by the district attorney's office after the case was filed.
Not when what, sir?
The interview of Ms. Resnick and her background is being handled by the LA district attorney's office subsequent to filing.
But didn't you tell us the other day that Van Adder interviewed her also, was present at that interview?
He was present during the initial interview. That's correct.
And you're both co-lead investigators, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And you don't the two of you ever talk about this case?
All the time.
And has he ever discussed with you what Faye Resnick said?
Not to any great degree.
You never talked about it.
We've talked about certain things,
And-
but again, not to any great degree.
It was of no interest to you so that it would cause you to want to go out and check out that possibility of a retaliation for failing to have paid for drugs obtained after June 3rd, 1994.
Objection. This is
Sustained.
background.
It's a hall problem. That's a hall problem.
Thank you. Now, you mentioned also that you searched the Nicole Brown Simpson home for various things. When did you conduct this search for the drug paraphernalia and sort of things of that nature? When was that?
I've been through the house on several occasions, beginning on the 13th.
All right, on the 13th, I thought you told us earlier that you just basically went through the house and you left by 12 o'clock. When was it that you searched for drugs during that period of time?
On the 13th, I looked for drugs, drug paraphernalia,
Right.
drug debris.
Had drugs come up by that time?
Have drugs come
Had
up?
drugs come up by the time you were searching on the 13th?
I saw none.
I'm asking you, you said that you were searching for drugs. What was making you search for drugs on June
That was
13th?
part of my superficial investigation. I always check for things such as drugs, handguns, large amounts of money, things of this nature.
And part of your superficial investigation took how long? About 15 minutes?
No, I believe I was there for several hours.
Well, we know you were there for several hours, but how many times, how long were you searching?
Within the house,
It's inside the house, the interior of the house.
I was probably in and out of there several times, perhaps as long as an hour and a half, 2 hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes. It's hard to say.
And how much of that time was spent searching, Detective?
I'd say the whole time was spent looking at things, noting things.
And while you were doing this, you, by the way, didn't take any photographs of that interior other than the knife and the things down on the kitchen counter. Is that right?
The only photographs taken at that time were of the knife on the counter, yes.
Is your answer yes?
Yes,
don't-
yes.
All right. So you didn't take any photographs of anything that you searched and any drawers you looked in upstairs. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you ascertain and find out which room Faye Resnick might have lived in that house from June 3rd to June 8th when you were there on the 13th?
I didn't know who Ms. Resnick was at that time.
All right. So you didn't know where to look. Is that a fair statement?
I didn't know who she was or anyone else at the location. We hadn't even earlier had this victim identified until we found her identification in her room and we made positive identification.
Your answer is you didn't look and you didn't know where to look. as to which room Faye Resnick may have occupied. Is that right, sir?
I didn't know who Faye Resnick was.
All right. Well, when you found out who she was, did you go back and look?
No.
Have you ever personally talked to Faye Resnick yourself?
Yes.
And when was that?
About an hour and a half ago.
Today?
That's correct.
Over the telephone?
She called, yes.
Is that over lunch hour?
Yes, it was.
Is that the first time you ever talked to her?
Other than in passing and greeting, yes.
You were not present when she was interviewed before, is that right?
That's correct.
Now, as I understood your testimony this morning, did you indicate that you cannot tell us which of the two individuals in this case were killed first? Neither Mr. Goldman or Ms. Brown Simpson, is that correct?
That's correct.
And with regard to Mr. Goldman and the fight that he put up prior to losing his life, Dr. Erwin Golden, Goldin, is the forensic pathologist who did the autopsies in this case. Is that correct?
I believe it's Ulden. Dr. Golden, yes.
Goldin?
Yes.
All right. He is the doctor, the expert. Is that correct?
He's the pathologist who performed the autopsies.
And you were present and you've seen him testify at the preliminary hearing and other times in this case, have you not?
Yes.
And do you recall Dr. Golden describing the bruises and abrasions on Mr. Goldman's knuckles as follows? Counsel, is from the preliminary hearing, page 96. Question, and in general, as in brief, how would you characterize those wounds? Answer, basically there are multiple abrasions involving the forearm, including the outer or lateral aspect of the forearm, where there are multiple abrasions. That means scratches. Some were not scratches. They were irregular in configuration. On the top of the hand, there were fresh bruises, abrasions on the knuckles. And I went into detail on which fingers and which knuckles. Remember him so testifying?
No,
You don't remember that?
I don't have an independent
John the Beagle Dad, where are you? Walter, are you here?
recollection.
All
I'm
right.
not saying it didn't happen.
Would it be helpful for you to read it yourself?
No.
All right. There are abrasions, bruises. I will look it up here.
Oh,
There are abrasions.
hearsay at this point. Sustained.
This is with regard to exception. May I approach? He's not here saying with regard to this one. Is this his expert?
Nope. Sidebar.
Yes.
And you are aware of what he testified about these bruises and abrasions on Mr. Goldman's knuckles. Is that correct?
I'm aware he testified regarding those, yes.
And with regard to that, did you, prior to giving us your opinion yesterday about how Mr. Goldman may have gotten these injuries to his hands, did you ever discuss that with your expert forensic pathologist regarding what those bruises connoted and what they meant?
No.
So you gave us, you're not a doctor, right?
That's correct.
And you gave us an opinion yesterday without talking to the doctor who's assigned to this case. Is that right?
That's my opinion that I gave you. I wouldn't elicit my opinion from anyone.
All right. This was your opinion, right?
That's correct. That's what I was asked.
Now, with regard to whether or not these killings were done by one individual, again, at the preliminary hearing, did you have occasion to listen to Dr. Golden and his testimony of whether or not he believed there may have been two knives involved or used at the time? Well,
Sustained.
let me state it this way. Did you hear Dr. Golden's testimony about the number of knives that he found may have been used at the time of these killings? preliminary
Same
hearing?
question. Same question. If he heard the testimony of Dr. Golden, yes or no, did he consider that?
All right. Did you hear the testimony of Dr. Golden again at the preliminary hearing?
Yes.
And did you consider that testimony as it relates to weapons prior to forming your opinion that you gave us yesterday?
Yes.
And did you discuss that testimony with Dr. Golden yesterday before you gave us your opinion about the number of weapons involved here?
I didn't discuss it with him yesterday. I have discussed the one or two weapon theory with Dr. Golden.
You've done that in the past?
Yes.
Can you tell us when was the last time you discussed that with Dr. Golden? Well, strike that. Did you discuss it with him after the preliminary hearing?
I believe it was after, yes.
Did you ever discuss it with him before the preliminary hearing?
I don't recall if there's any discussion during autopsy or not.
Did you write a report based upon your discussion with Dr. Golden?
I wrote a report, notes initially at the autopsy, yes.
No, I wanted to know, this was the conversation you had afterwards that you said where you talked about the number of weapons. Did you write a report about that conversation?
No,
So there's no report?
I don't believe there is. I'm not saying there's no report. I discussed this with another individual, and whether or not that individual made reports or not, I don't know.
In the course of your investigation, did you find any debris or any bark from a tree or anything of that nature on Mr. Goldman's hands or on any portion of his body?
I did not personally examine his hands.
All right, that's your answer. Did you find anything of that nature?
I didn't examine his hands, so I didn't find anything.
If you were to see a photograph of his hands, would you recognize that photograph from the autopsy at all?
If there was some identifier, perhaps, I couldn't just identify a hand, no.
All right, you were present at the autopsy when you observed these things, did you not?
That's correct.
Now, with regard to the hands of these two individuals, was your testimony yesterday that never in your experience as a homicide investigator have you ever bagged the hands of a victim other than in a circumstance where there was a gunshot wound? Is that what you said?
My experience has been that we bag the hands of gunshot victims.
Okay, you told us that, and from a standpoint of good forensic procedure, and have you read books on this subject at all?
On what, bagging hands?
Bagging hands and saving trace evidence.
Specifically, no.
You've never read a book on that subject, is that right? And-
Specifically on that subject, no.
Yes, sir.
No.
And in that connection, would you agree that the best way, or that experts agree the best way to preserve trace evidence is to bag hands and keep the hands separate? Would you agree with that?
I can't say that, no. I think it's important to attempt to preserve any evidence. There are different ways that one would go about doing that, and it doesn't necessarily include bagging of the hands.
But you've never read a book with regard to that, is that correct?
A book on bagging the hands?
Yes,
No, I
a book or any portion of a book regarding bagging of hands?
No.
With regard to the subject of lividity, which you talked about yesterday, have you ever read any articles or publications regarding lividity and what lividity is?
Yes.
And what did you read? What's the last thing you read in that connection?
Over the years, I've read several books. I've read criminal investigation, homicide investigation, various publications.
Oh, please say California evidence. Please. Can you just please say California evidence?
Do you know what the term blanching is?
Yes.
And what is blanching?
Blanching is the touching of the skin after death in the area that has lividity in an attempt to see if that it would blanch if you touch, say, a red area that's lividity, you depress that area and the blanching of the whiteness remains. There's a good possibility that the person has been deceased for 4 or 5 hours or longer. Generally, if the redness would return, it may indicate that that person has been killed within 2, 3, or 4 hours, something under the 5 or 6 hours general guide.
All right, now, what to you does the term lividity mean?
Lividity is the sinking of the blood in the human body subsequent to death to its lowest point caused by a gravitational pull.
And if you have a fair-skinned individual, it might show up more than if it's somebody who has darker skin. Is that a fair statement?
Well, it would depend. In this particular case, you had a victim with very little blood in her, and not necessarily under those circumstances.
Well, that was as to the one victim. Did you check lividity as to both victims? Did you not?
Just from what I could observe, they were fully, with the one victim, Mr. Goldman, was fully clothed. I couldn't observe any lividity.
And Miss Nicole Brown Simpson was clothed also, was she not?
She was clothed, yes.
All right. And with regard to her body, What, if anything, did you notice regarding lividity?
Under those circumstances at the scene, nothing.
Did you try? Did you touch her skin?
I wouldn't have touched her skin, no.
All right, you did not do that. So your observations were nothing regarding lividity in this particular case. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And lividity, so that we're clear, is one of those conditions which one might use to try and determine the time of death. Is that correct? Along with other factors?
It's a very general indicator. I wouldn't depend entirely on lividity as a determined time of death.
I didn't ask you to depend entirely. I said, was that one of the factors that you might use to determine the time of death? Is that correct, sir?
One might.
All right. And what about you?
Again, it would depend on the circumstance. In this case, certainly not.
And that was because she lost so much blood?
Because she lost so much blood. There was no lividity that I could see, certainly on the back portion of her or her legs that were visible.
But you'd made no palpable or no touching of that body. Is that right?
I did not touch
All
her.
right. Have you ever read a book put out by the National Institute of Justice Research Project entitled Identifying Plant Food Cells and Gastric Contents for Forensic Investigations, a Laboratory Manual? You ever read that?
No,
By Bach, Lane, and Norris?
no.
Have you ever read any publication at all about how stomach contents might be used to determine the time of death in individuals?
Read Lemoyne Snyder's homicide investigation that addresses that particular thing, but again, that's just one general indicator.
And Lemoyne Snyder, when did you read that last?
I've referred to it several times over the years.
When did you read it last?
Read it from cover to cover several years ago.
When was that?
Gosh, probably 10, 12, 15 years ago.
That's the last time you read it?
Well, I refer to it from time to time. That'd be the last time I read it cover to cover.
And again, in that connection, you've told us that all these things are factors. But you take all these factors, whether lividity or stomach contents or where the person had their last meal, and you put all those things together as an investigator, and you try to determine what the time of death is. Isn't that correct? Isn't that what you do? Can you answer that yes or no?
You attempt to, yes. But again, it's very general. Without an eyewitness, you're never going to be able to pinpoint the time of death.
We understand that. And if there are no eyewitnesses, we appreciate that. But what you do is you do the best you can with each homicide scene. Isn't that correct, sir?
You certainly do.
And what you do is you try to assemble a team of forensic pathologists, and you try to use that team. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And if there's evidence that might help you determine certain things, you try to preserve that evidence. You don't throw it away. Isn't that correct?
Well, you're always going to attempt to preserve evidence, certainly.
And you try to do the best you can to gather all the facts. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
You've already shared with us that each case is somewhat different. Isn't that correct?
All cases are different.
Now, yesterday you described a term which you believed you call it a cast-off. You ever qualified as a blood splatter expert in any court in Los Angeles County before?
Yes,
How many times?
twice.
And where was that?
In federal court once, and in the court of Judge James Basque, LA County Superior Court.
And when was that?
Approximately four years ago, perhaps.
You remember what the name of the case was?
Yes, it was the Kowal. Kowal was the victim. It was the Karamalis case.
Karamalis case?
Karimalis.
And with regard to this term,
I don't think so. Because remember during the preliminary hearing how they didn't trust DNA? How they were very hesitant about any DNA. So maybe fingerprints, but if you're talking about the bags over the hands, that's guns, which doesn't make any sense why he went down that road, but it doesn't matter because he's an ass. Wrong button.
term cast-off, have you read any publications on that particular term?
Yes, I've read
What'd you read?
books on blood spatter analysis, crime scene analysis.
All right, and that connection, does that have to do, what the term cast off, does it have to do with describing the velocity with which a splatter moves from one object to another? Is that correct?
Not necessarily the velocity, it's just describing a droplet of blood falling from say a weapon.
All right, and can you tell by looking at a splatter whether or not the droplet was a free fall or it was thrown from a distance? Can you tell that?
Yes,
And you, in this case, did you make an analysis in this case at the scene that day?
as to blood droplets, yes.
Yes, sir.
As to this particular, are you referring to a particular droplet or all of the
Talking
blood?
about the droplet you talked about yesterday on Naron Goldman's shoe.
Okay,
Did you make an analysis that day at that time at the scene?
no.
Well, when did you make your analysis? At a later time?
As to the fact it was a cast off,
That's your belief it was a cast off.
subsequent to that date,
And when was that? When did you first make that analysis?
I believe after information became available as to the identity of the blood that was contained.
And when was that? Give us the month or the year.
Might have been September, October last year.
1994?
Yes.
Now, it's true, is it not, that the condition of Mr. Goldman's shoes changed after they were bagged by the coroner's office? So there were more blood on those shoes after they were bagged and taken to the coroner's office than there were before. Isn't that correct?
I wasn't aware of that.
You're not aware of that? Have you seen any pictures that would indicate that?
I wasn't aware of that.
Did you ever talk to any expert in the field, a blood spatter expert, regarding this cast-off theory that you told us about yesterday?
Yes,
And did you ever write a report in your book regarding your belief about the cast-off theory?
no.
Is that ever written anywhere in any of these volumes of books that you have?
As to that droplet being a
Yes.
cast off?
Yes.
No, I don't believe it is.
And did you ever testify about that before in any proceeding in this case?
No, I was never asked about that.
So your first time you testified about that was yesterday, right?
This is the first time I was asked about it.
And did you answer yes? First time you testified?
That's correct.
And it's not written in any publication or any reports you've written in this case. Is that right?
That's correct.
With regard to this so-called mixture of the victim's bloods, do you know whether or not there's a more concentration of one victim's blood over the other in this so-called splatter? You know
No.
that? You have no knowledge of that, do you?
No.
Now, you talked to us yesterday about the bodies being in a rather close area and that the evidence was close to the bodies, or the evidence was right around the bodies. You recall that?
Yes.
And in that connection, the criminalists in this case, as I recall, did not arrive until after 10 o'clock because they'd been over at Rockingham. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Now, in some of the videos we've seen, we saw a man you identified, I think, as Johnson. Steve Johnson, was it?
Yes.
And he's one of the criminalists, a supervisor. Is that correct?
Yes.
The LAPD lab, SID lab, has more than 2 criminalists, don't they?
Yes.
And if you'd wanted to get other criminalists out there to start working on that scene at Bundy, you could have done that, couldn't you?
There was no need to, but I could have.
You could have done that?
Perhaps I could have, but I had expected the criminalists to come directly over from Rockingham.
And so when they got there after 10 o'clock, that was some 10 hours after these bodies had been found. Is that correct?
Approximately.
And at that time, since the coroners had finally been called, the coroners were there already when the criminalists arrived. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And then ultimately, you were present when these bodies were moved. Is that correct?
Yes, I was.
You described for us that your belief, let's strike that. Did you see the evidence move that we've talked about earlier when the bodies were moved? You see
Once
that?
again, my answer was then and still is now. I did not physically see them move.
All right. But at any rate, the bodies were moved, and had the criminalists finished their work at the time these bodies were moved?
No.
So Fung and Mazzola continued to do their work after the coroners and coroners representatives took the bodies away. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, want to show you part of a video we've shown before in regard to Mr. Fung and his presence at the scene there that morning on June 13th.
All right, which exhibit is this, Mr. Cochran?
It's 10:43 on the dice, Your Honor.
Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to answer the judge's question. He appreciates that.
Mr. Cochran?
Yes, sir.
If you want to stand up and stretch for a moment, please feel free to do so. The audience can too as well. Mr. Cochran?
Thank you. I want to have you take a look at this portion of the video. I believe you've seen this before. Now, just that gentleman there with the, now stop it right there. Now, the man who's coming out of an area that you just went into, who is that?
It's Mr. Fung?
Is that the criminals we've been talking about?
Yes.
And he has a bag in his right hand with no glove on that hand. You see that?
Yes,
And that's an area that you just came out, that you just went into, right?
that's correct.
And is that the area over wherein, the jury be familiar with the area where Mr. Goldman's body was found?
Yes,
Is that the area where, strike that, Mr. Fung is coming out of that area, is that correct? Is he about to step over Ms. Nicole Brown Simpson's body at that point? You can tell?
I can't tell whether the body has been moved out on the walkway at that point or not.
Well, do you see the man in the blue, and perhaps it may be one of the other body, do you see the man in the blue bent over Mr. Jacopo
Yes,
in the coroner's office? Do you
yes,
recall when you saw him there that day and working in that area on the walkway, he was working with bodies when he's at that location?
yes, but I can't tell which body is here.
All right, I understand that, but it's apparently one of the bodies, is that correct?
It would appear that way, yes.
All right. Your Honor, we printed out this particular photograph if we can earlier, if the court pleases, and may I ask the court to allow me to mark this as 10 or A,
1043A.
1043A, that's all right, Your Honor.
All right, and this
I've
is
shown it to counsel. 1043.
Now I don't trust their little printouts of the video because of how badly they misrepresented the last ones.
3A.
counter.
Now,
Excuse me.
Sorry.
This is counter 01181801 on the counter.
Well, I have on the photograph 1181807, Your Honor. So it may continue.
That's in hundreds of seconds.
Hundreds of seconds, yes. So let's take it to 7. To 7. Photograph 7. So now we have it here. All right, now, Mr. Lang, what does Mr. Fung have in that bag in his bare hand there?
I believe that's very possibly the right-hand glove from Rockingham.
Well, he had taken the right-hand glove from Rockingham into the area where Mr. Goldman's body was and where this left-hand glove was. Is that right?
I had asked him to look at the glove.
Can you answer that yes or no, sir? Have you taken the glove in there?
Oh,
Unless
shit,
I'm
that's
mistaken, this is very possibly the time that he brought the glove over to me to look at, yes.
So the question is, yes, he had taken the glove inside that area.
Well, again, I'm trying to be as accurate as I can. I may be mistaken, but I had asked Mr. Fung if I could look at the glove from Rockingham. He brought it over to me, and I believe that this very possibly may depict that. I don't know for sure.
Now, this
That's
morning
not
when
good,
I asked you,
guys.
didn't you tell us?
Pretty
well, start
bad.
that. Is it your recollection now as you sit here that you had looked at the glove in the bag at this point?
I don't
It shows
believe-
on this counter.
I don't believe I did. I believe I looked at the bag at the evidence truck after he walked out with it, if this in fact is that time.
But what has he done just before this, if you know, with that bag?
I don't believe he did anything. If this in fact is the incident depicted here with the glove in the bag, he didn't do anything with it.
What was he doing over in the area of Mr. Goldman's body?
Well, again, I don't know if Mr. Goldman's body is back there or not at this point, because I don't know which body is out on the walkway. I have no idea.
All right, let's continue on with video. He apparently stepped over something. Did that refresh your recollection? He stepped over one of the bodies at that point.
Yes, Fung, yes.
See that? Back it up. Back it up. Back it up. See that? Can you see that drink? Somebody having a drink in their hand there? See
There's to
that?
be a cup in someone's hand, yes.
A cup at 11834.29. That's a violation of the rules you told us about the other day, isn't it?
I don't know where he's standing. If I had seen that, I wouldn't have allowed it on the scene. I don't know if the cup is full, if it's empty, and I have never seen that cup at the scene.
You see the scene? You see the cup at the scene now, sir?
Yes, I do.
All right, and that's what the question was. It's a violation of the rules you told us about yesterday. Isn't that correct, sir?
I would not allow that on my crime scene. That's my same answer. That's correct.
I'm saying, do you see yourself up at the top?
Never mind. Proceed.
Okay. Do you see yourself up in the upper right-hand portion of this photograph?
I'm not looking for cups, Mr. Cochran.
I've said, do you see yourself at the scene, detective? Can you answer the question, please?
I'm trying to.
Okay, would you answer? Do you see yourself on the video here?
Yes,
All right. Now, do you see the cup in the video?
yes, I do.
And that's a violation of the rules you told us about, right?
That's correct.
Do you know whose hand that is? Who had
No.
that cup?
No.
Continue on. You see it again there?
Yes, Mr. Cochran, I saw it again.
It was bound to
Hey,
happen,
no, stop.
guys.
We stop a moment.
He's been dealing with these asinine questions for days and days and days. So it was bound to happen. He's hit his limit. He's done. He's done with this man. He has to, it's about to end for him. We know that he's almost all done. All he has to do is breathe through a little bit more.
You see Mr. Fung there? He doesn't have anything on his hands there, does he? He has no.
Can't tell with that shot.
Well, look at his right, on his right hip. To be able to tell he does not have any gloves on his hands at that point. You able to tell that?
No,
You can't tell that, all right? Continue on. You see his hands now? You see Fung's hands now?
yes, does not appear to have gloves on.
That's it.
Frame 51 of 19.
Absolutely.
118-51-19, Your Honor.
Yes.
It's set. Thank you.
I'm not even on stand, and I have no skin in this game. and I already know the outcome. And I got testy weeks ago with him.
There's another video that rather than show it, I think we showed it earlier, I want to just approach the witness and ask him to identify, and then I'll put it on the Elmo if the court will allow. You have shown us the counsel, so I'll mark this as defendant's next in order.
This is
1043B. Shown to counsel, Your Honor.
1043B.
1043B, yes, Your Honor. Now, Detective Lang, I'm going to place before you this photograph. It's a print, actually, in video. Do you recognize the gentleman depicted therein?
Appears to be the photographer.
Is that Mr. Rokar?
It looks like Mr. Rokar, yes.
And in that photograph, can you see his camera there?
Yes,
Right shoulder?
correct.
And you see the line still up so that the crime scene is still intact at that point?
Yes,
He's inside the crime scene? Mr. Rokar is inside the crime scene?
appears to be, yes.
All right, place on the Elmo, Your Honor.
If only we had an idea of when the next witness would come on stand.
Now, that's a photograph of the photographer in this case, is that correct? You see his camera in his right hand, do you not?
Yes,
He apparently is looking inside of a mailbox there at the location.
it
that right?
appears that way.
Is that one of the jobs you assigned him that morning, to look inside that mailbox?
No. He may have been looking inside that mailbox to take a photograph of mail, however.
He may have been doing any number of things, but what we have is the photograph. Is that correct, sir?
When we have a photographer at the scene, we generally ask them initially to do orientation shots, and we do not supervise each and every one of them. I would certainly expect my photographer to show that initiative, and in this case, he appears to be showing that initiative.
He's showing you lots of initiative, is that right?
He's showing me the initiative that he's looking in that mailbox, and if there were mail in there, I'm sure he'd photographed it and told me about it.
Have you seen any photographs of mail in this case, sir?
He would have known unless he looked.
Can you answer one question? Did you see any mail in that mailbox?
No,
All right. And then with regard to that, you had a report about him opening the mailbox to look inside the mailbox.
no,
You didn't know anything about him doing this, so you saw the video, did you?
that's correct.
And do you know whether or not that mailbox had been dusted for prints before he did this?
I have no idea when this particular photograph was taken.
You have no idea whether he did this totally on his own, do you?
I believe, to me, it shows initiative that he did it. I
I
have no
asked you-
idea when it was done.
That's
I
not
have
what I
no
asked you,
idea.
sir. Do you have any idea whether you have no idea when he did this, right?
That's correct.
And you not told him to do this, is that right?
No, I didn't.
The first time you became aware of this is when you saw this photograph, right?
Once again, that's true.
Do you know whether or not that mailbox had been dusted for any kind of prints at that point?
Same answer. I have no idea when this
All right.
photograph was taken, so
All
I
right.
can't give you that answer.
Thank you. Your Honor, we've marked that exhibit if the court pleases. And I would like also to mark 1043C is the photograph of the arm with the cup in it, which was at 11834.29. I placed that on the
1043C.
1043C, and we'll pass that on, Your Honor. Now, with regard to this white sheet or blanket that we saw this morning and we've seen before, you have seen blood on that sheet and blanket. Isn't that correct? Did you not?
Yes,
That blood came from Miss Nicole Brown Simpson's body, or an area of her body?
yes.
Now, you alluded to, I believe this morning, the fact that there had been a walkthrough which you had participated in with the defense, I think in August, on about August 27th of 1994. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And at that time, a knit cap was pointed out to you. And did you ever see the investigator, McNally, who was there, try that knit cap on?
No,
And you weren't interested in booking that knit cap, were you?
I had no interest in looking at no.
All right. And have you seen these knit caps where there's one size that fits all?
I suppose there is such a thing.
And what happened to that knit cap? Do you know?
I'm assuming that the family
know what
collected
happened
it
to it?
with everything else. I did not follow up on the knit cap, no.
And what color was the knit cap, sir?
My recollection is either dark blue or black. I don't recall.
Appeared to be the same color as the knit cap that you allegedly found outside. Is that correct?
It was a dark color. I don't recall if it was the same color or not.
Did you take a photo of that particular cap that was pointed out to you that morning?
No.
Now, with regard to the children, we talked about this briefly. The police officer Vasquez overheard a statement wherein Sidney Simpson was speaking to her younger brother, Justin. Is that correct?
It's my understanding, yes.
And that statement is in a report provided by Vasquez. Is that correct?
I believe so.
And the subject of that statement deals with a phone call that their mother had received that night. Isn't that correct?
I don't know if it involves a phone call. I thought it involved an overhear on the part of Sydney. And I'm not sure, though. I haven't reviewed it in some time.
An overhear of a phone call, sir. Isn't that correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
The subject matter you're not hearsay.
What's the objection? Sustain.
Asking about the subject matter. Your Honor.
But involves hearsay. Sustain.
So did it involve a overhear of a conversation?
Objection, Your Honor.
That's not a hearsay.
That's
Overhear of a
not
conversation is
subject.
hearsay.
What went on is.
Yes. Did it involve an overhear of a conversation? Telephone
believe it
conversation?
I believe it did.
When's the last time you've seen Vasquez's report?
When you showed it to me in court several days ago,
All right, and she's still with the Los Angeles Police Department?
I don't know.
You don't know that?
I don't know.
In the course of your investigation, did you ever ascertain whether or not Nicole Brown Simpson received a phone call from Faye Resnick that night?
I did not have that information, no.
With regard to your theory of this not being a drug killing, would that ever be relevant to you, given the facts I gave you before regarding Faye Resnick, and whether or not there was a phone call from Faye Resnick at about 9 o'clock or thereafter on the night of June 12th, 1994? Would that have been important to you as an investigator from Faye Resnick to Nicole Brown Simpson?
Yes.
That would be important to you?
Well, I'd like to talk to Faye Resnick, not because I thought it was a drug-related murder, but anyone who spoke with the victim I'd be interested in.
Well, you talked to her at lunchtime today without giving us that conversation. That's the first time you've talked to her since you read the book?
I think he's already answered that question.
The book, Your Honor? I don't think I've asked that question.
Said he read the
So-
book when it first came out, and he told us about talking to her this afternoon. He's already told us about this.
All right, there we go. When you were at Rockingham, it's your testimony that you came in the rear of Mr. Simpson's home. Is that correct?
Initially, yes.
And when you came in the rear of that house, you remember what order you came into the house, sir?
No.
And did Arnell Simpson come in first?
She may have.
What, did she have a key?
Seems to me she did key her way in.
And do you recall whether or not the alarm was on at that house at that time, sir?
No,
You don't recall?
that's correct.
You have no recollection of whether or not she had to turn the alarm off at some point?
She may have. My attention wasn't focused on her.
But at any rate, if she did it after she came inside the house from the rear, right?
I would assume that.
Now, yesterday you described during redirect examination how you allowed Detective Furman to interview Mr. Cato.
Maybe. I don't remember. You know how the 90s were? Maybe people are looking at reasons to find the police guilty back then. I don't know. I can't remember.
Cato Kalin in his room, is that right?
That's correct.
Did you specifically tell him to do that, or you just told him, you just didn't stop him from doing that?
It's the way things happened. He was walking in front of me. I was going towards the house to knock on the rear door. He walked to the guest house and knocked on the guest door. He was the one that happened to be there to do that.
Okay, now my question, let's get back to my question. My question was, did you specifically tell him to do that at all?
Specifically tell him to knock
Go
on
and
the
interview
door.
Cato Kalin. Did you tell him to do that?
No.
Yesterday, you indicated at some point in your examination, did you use the words, "I work for Van Adder"? Did you say that?
I work for Van Adder.
Did you use the words "I work for Van Adder"? Was that in the transcript? Strike that. I won't put it. That's a bad question. Did you say that? I saw it in the transcript. Did you say that? I work for Van Adder?
In relation to testimony yesterday?
Yes, sir. In relation to testimony yesterday.
I don't recall saying that.
You don't recall saying that?
No.
Did you work for Van Adder on that date?
About them,
No.
about the police? Okay. No. So I'm thinking the same thing David's thinking right now. They're just trying to trash the police. And they have good reason to. But that's all they're trying to do. They're trying to say he's innocent because the police mishandled things, which both could be true. He could be guilty and the police could have mishandled things. But trying to think about the mindset of like the general public who would be in the jury in the 90s. So if they're trying to trash the police, it really could be the mindset in the 90s that people were looking for reasons to blame the police for something. You know what I mean? They weren't as trusting or supportive of the police as they are now because of some of the things that the police might actually have done in the 90s to, provoke the public.
You were co-lead investigators, is that right?
We work as partners, that's correct.
You were asked a series of questions yesterday by Ms. Clark about, I believe, candles and the state of burning of those candles. And so that we're clear, there are no photographs of these candles to assist us now as we look back to try and determine how much they burn. Is that correct?
I have no photographs, that's correct.
All right. And not only you, there are no photographs in this case of those candles. Is that right?
I recently observed a video that has the candles in them, yes.
All right. Where'd you observe that video?
I believe that was a compilation of news releases, news stories, and news videos that were received from the defense,
Where did you receive it from the defense?
from you,
And you saw this? You saw a candle burning? In what room?
in the front room,
In the living room area?
yes.
Is there any pictures or that you ever took of any candles burning?
No, I already testified. We took no pictures of the candles burning.
The only burning candle you've seen is a video turned over by the defense to the prosecution. Is that correct?
That's correct.
When did you see that?
When?
Yes. What date was it?
I believe it was last Friday night
Last Friday night? And where were you at that time when you saw it?
in this building.
And who were you with?
Myself,
By yourself, alone,
by myself,
on Friday night, watching videos?
by myself, alone, watching videos.
I won't say anything else about that. And you, excuse me. Thank you.
I was asked to do it.
All right, you asked it by Ms. Clark? Okay. Well, explain that. Huh? And who asked you to do that?
Ms. Clark,
Ms. Clark? All right. Did she watch any of those videos with you?
no.
Now, yesterday, Ms. Clark went through an attempt to try and explain the 115, 116, 117 photo ID numbers and the evidence numbers. Do you remember that?
It
Well,
is. It is.
well-
It is.
Attempt? Well, okay, I'll take out the word attempt. Yesterday, Ms. Clark asked you some questions about 115, 116, 117, and the photo ID numbers and the numbers assigned to evidence in this case. Do you recall that?
Yes.
As I understood what you indicated to us, you said that the answers to the difference between the photo ID numbers and the items that were assigned to evidence are located in the voluminous 30,000 pages of reports in this case. Is that what you basically said to us? I'm asking you.
It states the evidence.
What, dear?
Stacy Evans.
Didn't you say the answer to the 115, 116, 117 was contained in the reports in this case? Did you say that?
I believe I said the property reports.
Yes. Did you say that? And among the reports in this case, there are how many pages?
Stacy testified.
Overruled.
Among the reports,
Overruled.
among the reports in this case, how many pages are they all together, if you know? Property reports and all reports.
Objection, that's irrelevant.
Overruled.
As to the entire investigation,
Yes, sir.
several thousand.
Several thousand?
Yes.
You heard the term 30,000?
I don't know if there are that many. At least not generated by the police department after the case was filed. Of course, there was a lot more that went on.
Now, with regard to that glove that we saw, strike that. With regard to the bag that we saw on the video that we showed you regarding Mr. Fung, after having seen that, is your memory refreshed as to whether or not it was after we saw Mr. Fung stepping out of the area where Mr. Goldman was, that you then went out to the van and looked inside of the envelope, inside of the paper bag, rather?
Again, if this was the bag that had the glove in it, I would have done that. I don't know if this was that particular bag or if Mr. Fung was back there doing something else. It's unclear to me whether Mr. Goldman was still back in that position or not, so I can't give you a time frame and I can't give you an answer.
Well, did you see Mr. Fung at the scene that morning after he got there after 10 o'clock on the 13th with more than one paper bag as he appeared in the video?
I saw him with various bags at different times, yes.
Were the other bags that you saw similar to that bag?
Yes.
How many bags did you see him with at all that day?
I don't recall. I believe they put one piece of evidence in one bag, so I observed 2 or 3 bags in the area. I don't recall specifically.
Now, with regard to shoe prints at the scene there of that particular evening, we've had a lot of testimony about shoe prints leading and heading west of where the bodies were found. Were you ever able to determine or make any copies or take any photographs of any shoe prints that were in the dirt area where Mr. Goldman's body was found?
I observed none in the dirt area.
And in fact, we know, do we not, that you stepped in that area, did you not?
I did.
Detective Furman stepped in that area, did he not?
Appears that way.
And Mr. Fung stepped in that area based upon that video, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
At least those 3. And there may have been others, isn't that correct?
Possibly.
And we know also that footprints aren't always, or shoe prints aren't always visible with the naked eye, isn't that correct?
I would say not.
Overruled.
Under these circumstances in the dirt, I examined it before I went in there and I saw none. I couldn't imagine invisible prints being in the dirt.
That's not the question. I didn't ask you about in the dirt. I said shoe prints aren't always visible with the naked eye. Isn't that correct? Shoe prints?
Oh, well,
In the dirt?
No, I asked you, are shoe prints sometimes
Depends on the
not
surface.
visible?
Mr. Cochran, it would depend on the surface.
All right,
If you were to ask me that on a flat,
You've answered
smooth
the question.
surface,
you've answered.
No objection.
oh, well, it was just a question, are some
Shoe prints.
shoe prints not necessarily visible to the eye?
All right.
Yes
Is that-
or no?
Yes or no? Are some shoe prints not necessarily visible with the naked eye?
you're not referring to dirt strictly? I thought you were
Excuse me,
referring to dirt.
counsel. Also, we've covered this twice already.
I want to ask, go into a specific area, Your Honor. I want to ask this. I thought he had, Your Honor, but I'm not
This is
sure
about
now.
the third time we're visiting it.
I'm
with-
not
with
sure,
this
Your Honor, now.
witness.
Based on where the answer is,
I'm
I'm not
sure.
sure. Well, I'm sure we did cover it. I'm not sure the answer now is what I'm indicating.
No, we got the same answer the last
Okay.
time.
May I ask this question again? Let me try to get an answer, Your Honor.
Quickly.
Are footprints and shoe prints sometimes not visible in the naked eye, depending upon the surface that they're on?
Yes,
All right. And with regard to the area of the dirt in this case, did you take any photographs or any photographs taken by you of any possible shoe prints that might be in that dirt area that morning?
there were none there, so there's no reason to take photographs.
So you didn't take any. You didn't take any photographs. Is that right?
There was nothing to take photographs
All
of.
right. So that if Mr. Goldman's assailant had stepped in the dirt and there were no shoe prints, and he left out like you did and walked along that walkway, trying to avoid the blood, there'd be no shoe prints for you to see. Isn't that correct?
I don't know. I saw none in the dirt.
Well, that's what you did, is it not? You stepped in there and you stepped out, tried to avoid any bloody shoe prints, did you not?
I did.
And since you weren't there, you don't know whether or not Mr. Goldman's assailant may have done that same thing. Isn't that correct?
Objection.
I'm asking you.
I have no idea what his assailant did.
Just like you have
Other
no
than
idea of whether
The
or not.
assailant, may I finish?
Hold on. Mr. Cochran, let him finish the answer before you start answering.
Thought he was finished.
The evidence clearly shows that the suspect went the opposite way because of the bloody shoe prints west on the sidewalk, not east on the walkway.
Well, sir, if you couldn't see the prints, how do you know that? You were not there.
I did see the prints. There were
But
bloody shoe prints.
If
I
there
saw
was,
them.
if there were shoe prints that were not visible with the naked eye, how would you know that? You were not there.
That's argumentative, counsel.
All right. Now, in that connection, yesterday when you told us that Mr. Goldman was surprised by this attacker, that's a theory of yours. You were not there. Is that correct?
It's correct that I was not there.
All right. And that's your theory. Is that not?
I believe there's a possibility that he was surprised, yes.
All right. That's a possibility. It's also a possibility he wasn't surprised. Isn't that correct?
The indicators to me are that he was, but again, as you stated, I wasn't there. I can't say.
And with regard to whether or not Mr. Goldman struck his assailant or assailants, you don't know that either, do you, sir? You can only tell us what your theory is. Is that
I
correct?
can only interpret the evidence that I have for you.
All right. And the evidence you have, you shared with us, and you're part of the prosecution team. Isn't that correct?
I am, yes.
Now, you talked about yesterday taking a statement from Mr. OJ Simpson. You recall that?
That's correct.
And when you talked to Mr. Simpson, he was cooperative, was he not?
That is a subjective thing. He was cooperative to the extent that he sat down and spoke with us, but
He didn't have to talk to you, did he, sir?
Objection. He's not finished his
I
answer.
thought he was finished. You may continue.
He was so cooperative. He took him on a nice little car ride first.
I don't believe he was cooperative in being entirely forthcoming with me.
That's, again, your opinion, isn't it?
forgot I was
That you're
gonna
giving us
share
all
that.
day today and yesterday. That's your opinion, right?
That's argumentative.
All right. Well, there's a tape recording of this interview.
Oral.
All right. There is a tape recording of this interview, is there not?
Yes, there is.
It's about 33 minutes. Is that correct?
That's correct.
The beginning of that interview, you tell him that he doesn't have to talk to you. I think, Your Honor, this part, I'd like to be heard with regard to this part.
Well, we're beyond the scope of redirect.
I'd last leave of court with regard to these series of questions, and I'll be right with
Laws
this
for
part.
laws, sir. Follow the rules. Beyond the scope.
All right.
All right, we made it to the end. I'm just gonna wait for him to flip over. Ooh, okay. That wasn't that bad. He's an idiot. He's an idiot. I mean,
Yes.
And you are aware of what
I'll fix that tomorrow. I get it. He won, but he's an idiot. There was footprints going that way. Oh, but you couldn't see the invisible footprints going the other way, did you? Anyway, so looks like we're gonna have a little bit more of Lang tomorrow, guys. Nope, not tomorrow. The day after tomorrow, guys. All right. Yeah, they're all criminals. They're all criminals. I will see you all again very, very soon. I hope you guys behave because courts aren't open. You might not see a judge till Monday. Bye, guys. Thank you.